This episode of To The Journey is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 150,000 titles for your desktop or mobile device. To get a free audiobook of your choice, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter. Visit enterpriseinspace.org for more details.
Hi, I'm Monuente Reme. I played Ichev on Star Trek Voyager, and you're listening to Trek FM.
I think it's safe to say that no one on this crew has been more obsessed with getting home than I have. But when I think about everything we've been through together, maybe it's not the destination that matters. Maybe it's the journey. And if that journey takes a little longer, so we can do something we all believe in, I can't think of any place I'd rather be, or any people I'd rather be with.
To the journey.
You're here.
To the journey.
Hello everybody at home and welcome. This is To The Journey. I'm your co-host Zachary Fruhling, and with me as always are...
Suzanne Williamson and...
Hey, sure.
So I don't know if you guys at home know this, but when we are recording a podcast, we can actually see each other on the screen and we can see each other's names. But today we've actually changed our names to the C-worthy versions of ourselves. Kay is Captain Dory. Suzanne is A Pirate's Life for Me. And I am Zachary Salty Sea Dog Fruhling.
Just keep swimming, swim, swimming, swim.
Who stole my rum?
Why is the rum gone?
Why is the rum always gone?
Zachary drank it.
I could make you walk the plank for that.
So in the episode 30 Days, we learned that Tom Paris always wanted to be in the Federation Naval Patrol, but we might be learning that Suzanne always wanted to be a pirate.
Who hasn't always wanted to be a pirate?
Yeah, come on. Being a pirate is very cool.
Sailing, pillaging, drinking rum. Doesn't get better.
Yeah, come on, don't tell us. Don't tell us you haven't rocked that pirate outfit at some point, Zachary, at some fancy dress party.
A sexy pirate outfit.
I was planning to wear it tonight, but I wore it last night, and it's out getting dry cleaned.
You mean you didn't save it for us?
You shouldn't dry clean your pirates.
What can I say? I'm a pirate who doesn't like to get dirty, you know? So if you haven't already figured it out, we are going to talk about the Voyager episode 30 Days today. And if you can't remember, 30 Days is the episode with the guy from Sex and the City. That's how I always remember this episode. Stanford Blatch.
It always makes me look around for Carrie, though. It's like, Stanford's here. Carrie has to be around somewhere.
Yeah, it's also the episode where Tom spends 30 days in the brig, hence the name.
And he becomes an ensign.
He does. Yes. And we spend almost a whole episode learning why he's in the brig.
And does it bother anyone else that the Delta Flyer is leaking underwater? I mean, if it leaks underwater that easily, imagine what it's going to do out in space.
I had lots of questions about the physics of this particular episode.
Yeah, he shouldn't have been able to fix it that easily.
No.
Stick a cork in it, Tom.
And only just be, lightly covered in water.
I don't think it should have been able to go underwater that easily anyway. Because don't they say, immersion shielding or something? They engage this immersion shielding that they've done. And then, before it starts leaking, Harry says, our shields are down. At which point I was like, well, why haven't you been crushed then? Because your hull plating is designed for space, which is exactly the opposite physics of going underwater. It's to hold pressure in rather than to hold pressure out. This doesn't work! It doesn't work! And I'm not going to get onto a rant about Into Darkness.
Yeah, the Delta Flyer is not a submarine. It should not be used as such.
No.
I thought it was actually really weird that Tom Paris always wanted to be in the Navy, or he was, really, really, really into 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's like the only time we find this out about him. I'm not sure it really makes sense with his character. I mean, I understand the 20th century pop culture stuff he's in, the Captain Proton thing. I'm not sure that matches up so well with Captain Nemo.
No, it doesn't. And none of his holographic programs have ever dealt with it. He's rebuilt cars, he's played Captain Proton, he's hung out in Sandrines. Never once has he been on a pirate ship. Or any kind of ship. Even the ship with Janeway and Chakotay, he wasn't on that one.
I mean, everyone's got something that they always wanted to do. In fact, we should probably compare notes. Like, okay, Kay, what's something you always wanted to do, but you never really talk about it. It never really comes up. You've always wanted to do it since you were a kid. There has to be something.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a farmer.
You could still be a farmer.
So every time in Star Trek when there's a totally agrarian society, you're like, I want to be on that planet.
Well, I'm not sure I still want to be a farmer now, but...
So you wanted to be in Caretaker.
Yeah, play the banjo. All about the banjo.
I could totally see you playing the banjo. We could have dueling banjos.
Okay, so you want to be Kay wants to be a banjo playing farmer. Okay, what about you, Suzanne?
I wanted to be an astronaut, which is pretty much what every other kid wanted to be.
That totally makes sense with the Star Trek thing.
Yours is way cooler.
You could have been a farming astronaut.
That's true. I could have farmed some other planet. So Zachary, what was your childhood ambition?
Okay, so I always wanted to be a train engineer. So when I play Star Trek and I say I want to be an engineer, I'm not talking about warp cores. I'm talking about like a planet that only has rail travel as their means of transportation. I want to drive trains.
Cool. So this scenario would have been slightly more plausible for your character.
Yeah, if there's ever a planet in such distress that you have to drive a train really far away to save the planet, I'm your guy.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about how they did this, because I know it gets talked about quite a lot about the idea of we have these hobbies that randomly show up for characters that they never mentioned before, and I think in this case it is particularly odd, because you'd think if it was something that was such a big passion that it would have come up. But then equally, I'm kind of like, well, is it good that they do come up with this stuff and we do get this sort of fleshing out, even if it's only a little bit of fleshing out?
Well, I guess the part of it that makes sense for me is the exploration part. Right? You can go explore at sea, or you can go explore in outer space, and that makes sense to me. But so, given that that's actually kind of similar, I don't understand this contrast between Tom Paris wanting to be at sea and his dad saying, "Oh no, how do you expect to be a captain of a starship if you go off and do that?" So they're not that dissimilar, right? They're both exploration.
But by the 24th century, don't you believe they've explored all of the ocean?
Well, no, they have to build new subcontinents, right? Don't they talk about that in The Next Generation?
Or they could find Atlantis.
Maybe it's exploring oceans on other planets as well.
Are you saying that the Earth does not need another subcontinent?
Don't we have enough already?
I kind of like the sea parts. They're kind of cool. Those are the bits where we don't really know about everything yet. Now, obviously.
I wanted to see more about the electric eel.
It's interesting what you said about wouldn't we have explored everything in the ocean by the 24th century, because I did wonder about the Moneans with their we haven't gone down this far. I'm like, well, you've got spaceships. Mm-hmm. So you've gone to space, which is an environment where you don't live, and you've been, living in the ocean for however long, where you do live, and you haven't figured out how to make craft that go deeper in the ocean. I didn't buy that. That didn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, that seemed a little goofy.
Yeah. I was like, surely if you live in an ocean, you would have explored, possibly not completely to the bottom of the ocean. I could give that, but it wasn't even that far down, was it?
No, it wasn't that far down at all.
It was reasonably far, but it wasn't like the bottom. I was like, yeah, you would.
I mean, even just to go down further and build your salinity or whatever, those oxygen factories they were building.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know enough about water pressure to know how far is a long way to go down in the ocean or anything. But, I mean, seems like, even here on Earth, like just a little ways down, you get an awful lot of pressure, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do. But if you're living in the sea, and they had those really cool spaceships that could go like underwater and into space.
Which rocks, by the way.
Yeah, I loved that scene where they come out of the ocean. I thought that was really cool. And like, if you've got that and you live in an ocean, surely you would have figured out how to go deeper. I just feel like they had the technology to do it. So for me, it felt a little bit like, well, they hadn't done, because that's how they made the plot make sense. And there was a lot of that in this episode. Well, that's because that's how they made the plot make sense.
Actually, I sort of feel like the Delta Flyer going underwater is like a poor man's Transformer. Like, remember the Transformers? Like, they change shape, and a train will turn into a space shuttle, which will turn into a robot. You don't even need to do that. This is like a lazy man's Transformer. Just Delta Flyer spaceship right into the ocean. Now it's a submarine. We don't even have to retool the machines to sell you one.
I was a shuttle, and now I'm a submarine. So do you think it was really right for Tom to be demoted after his actions?
I mean, the whole thing is supposed to make us think, isn't it, about what we think is the right answer, because it's all very ambiguous. I don't know. I mean, he does disobey a direct order. That's the point, I think, that Janeway goes with. But
well, I think you could plausibly say that Tom Paris got over his life in crime a little too quickly after he joined the Voyager crew. They just he was an ex-con, and now he's on Voyager. Now he's the Golden Flyboy again. Yeah, he's got a little bit of an attitude in season 1, but he's generally been on good behavior for 4 or 5 years at this point on Voyager. And so I like the fact they picked up this Tom's always getting in trouble thread and made something of it again. It's related to our discussion we had a couple weeks ago on continuity.
yeah,
This is part of Tom's continuity. He hasn't quite got over the urge to disobey orders that he doesn't agree with.
yeah. I mean, I think Janeway, she almost takes the whole thing as a personal insult.
She takes a lot of things as personal insults, though.
Yeah, I find I buy this a lot more, though. This makes sense to me. Like, her reaction makes sense to me, because at the beginning, they have this whole, him telling her all about his kind of childhood.
And they're really bonding. She calls him an old salt. Yeah.
And his cup was so empty in that scene, the entire scene. There was nothing in that teacup.
Yeah. And she's kind of like, well, yeah, go do it. Go do the thing. And she's indulging him. Like, she sees his passion and she's like, yeah, go do the exploration thing. That's totally cool. And then obviously, like, she feels like he's betrayed her trust. And she takes that really personally.
But in that ilk, don't you believe that Harry should have also been demoted after his space herpes incident? I think Harry should have been demoted. Crewman Kim.
To crewman?
And leave him that way for the rest of the voyage.
Down to the hamster wheels you go.
Exactly. The Equinox crew, they need some help.
Wait, are you saying Harry should have been Yeoman Kim?
No, assistant to the captain's assistant.
Bring me my coffee, Mr. Kim. Just bring in the coffee in on a little tray. That'd be amazing. Tea boy Harry.
Well, Tuvok used to bring Captain Sulu coffee. So.
Tea.
Or
tea.
Vulcan tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never brought me tea.
Well, wouldn't you bring Captain Sulu tea if he was in front of you? I would.
Yeah.
Sulu, you're awesome.
Too right.
I rewatched a different episode, Course Oblivion, recently, and I realized that there's a tell in that episode that when they call fake Tom Paris Lieutenant Paris, that takes place after he's already been demoted to ensign.
Yeah.
And so that totally gives away that the entire thing is not real.
Yeah.
I've been watching Voyager for years and years and years, and I just picked up on that the other day.
I picked up on that the first time I saw it.
Well, aren't you Miss Fancy Pants?
Yeah, and when I went, hang on a minute, when did he get put back to lieutenant?
I'm not that observant.
Yeah, I never picked up on that until I was thinking about this episode, and I realized, wait a minute, that comes after this one. Oh, I get it now. That's clever. I know everyone out there is like, okay, good job, Captain Obvious.
I think because when I watched it at that point, I was binge watching it, so I'd seen if you were watching it every week, it was a lot longer between the episodes, so it was less obvious.
One of the things I like about Tom getting demoted is the fact that B'Elanna gets to order him around at the end of the episode.
Don't you think she's already been doing that?
Yeah, I like that. That's an order, Ensign. I like that a lot. We should talk about B'Elanna's part in this episode, though, because I think she has to take part of the blame for this, personally.
For telling Captain Proton to go save the day?
Well, I really feel like she encourages him. She totally encourages him to go do it.
And I love that conversation happens while he's playing Captain Proton, because that's how Tom envisions himself. He wants to be the hero.
He wants
Captain
to save
Proton,
the
in this
day.
case, Captain Nemo, saving the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether he would have done it anyway, I don't know. But she definitely...
Gave him that big push.
She puts the idea in his head. And
well, given that conversation happens in Captain Proton land, does that mean Tom is really deluded himself into thinking that's who he is, the guy who always comes saving the day, the Federation flyboy who, swoops in. And is that a delusion, or is that...
I think that's what he wants to be eventually. So not really a delusion, but an aspiration.
Yeah, his Captain Proton program then maybe is all about being the hero, And I know it's obvious that it's about being the hero, but it's about his wish fulfillment of doing that, because he's never managed to do that himself.
But does that undermine his claim that he thinks he's doing it out of conscience?
But maybe if he thinks it's the right thing to do, that's part of the being a hero.
Yeah, he's not just doing it for
being the good guy.
Right.
Being the good guy because you're in the right. Yeah, it's a difficult one because obviously there is quite a big moral dilemma in the episode. But while we're talking about Captain Proton, we should have a little talk about the Delaney sisters.
Harry's fallen for the wrong twin.
I think it was actually fun to see the Delaney sisters after so much talk about the Delaney sisters.
Yeah, I really liked seeing them there in their Captain Proton-esque outfits.
The heels they were wearing were gigantic.
Yeah.
I was like, I would twist an ankle. I almost did just watching them. I'm
Absolutely.
Like, that hurts.
I love it as well when the one of them kind of goes, get the ray, whatever ray it is, mind ray. And the other one's like, sorry, Harry. I'm just like, oh.
My favorite part of it was when Harry tells Tom, I got this. Get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm working the situation here, Tom. Go away.
Like, oh, no, Harry. No, you don't. And you never will.
Now, I do have a little funny story about the whole jetpack thing, when he's flying with all the flames coming out on the jetpack. So when I was at convention this summer, this came up with Robert Duncan McNeill, and he actually said that when that happened, he was on like a platform that could tilt so that they could kind of film him and stuff. And apparently the jetpack tilted and like burnt him. He actually burnt his backside.
Oh yeah, I had heard that. Yeah, I had heard that before.
Yeah, so he actually burnt his backside, and the most amusing part about it is the fact that once they got him down, and they realised what had happened, they like pulled his pants down in the middle of the set to like treat it.
Last time on To the Journey, we had the title without the hot pants. Are you saying we should title this episode with the hot pants?
With the very hot pants, yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah. But yeah, and he was sort of like, so the bit at the end where he's kind of like flailing as he's flying along, he's like, no, that's me really screaming because I'm burning.
Oh, man.
Like, great acting, Tom. Keep it up. No,
yeah.
I'm in pain.
So yeah, I felt I should mention that while we were talking about it, because it's like, seriously, dude, that's hardcore.
He's probably permanently scarred from that.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, Robert Duncan McNeill's toasted bottom.
Well, speaking of Captain Proton, I love that Tom and Harry, of course, play Captain Proton together. And I love that they carry that sort of fictional enthusiasm into getting to play Sailor. They want to play Sailor Talk now. And I love the speed at which Harry adopts Sailor Talk. Like, Tom says, oh, that's just Sailor Talk. And he says, okay, I've got it. And then 7 of 9 walks over and he says, that's Sailor Talk. You'll get used to it. like he's been doing it all along.
I love what he says to Seven there. Ah, bosun, ready to shove off.
Yeah. Poor Seven.
That made me laugh quite a lot. The one real question that I had about Captain Proton, first of all, it's funny that he goes to the bridge in his Captain Proton outfit. That amused me quite a lot. But also, I don't understand why their outfits are colour. Because when they go in there, the thing adjusts them so they're not in colour. So why are they not just black and white anyway?
Well, their skin tone isn't. I mean, they're not normally black and white, but the holodeck makes them black and white. So I guess it's just easier if you want to if you want to wear this costume in something else. In another
You're saying when you replicate a Captain Proton costume before you go to the holodeck, why not just replicate a black and white one?
Yeah. That's where I was going with it.
I just see them reusing outfits.
Yeah. It was just a thing that occurred to me. Yeah, probably. I just thought it was quite amusing that it was... It's so that he could go to the bridge in it, obviously.
And not look so weird.
Yeah.
Well, so weird.
Well, obviously his skin tone wouldn't still be black and white on the bridge.
That would be kind of cool, though.
It would be kind of cool.
If he had to put on, like, grease paint, to make it happen.
Like that episode where the Doctor has to adjust his spectral frequency because he walks into the Captain Proton in color and they have to adjust him to be black and white. Imagine if the Doctor walked on the bridge and he was still black and white.
But then you could also throw in the episode where he shrinks.
That would be quite cool.
So he could be really short and in black and white.
It would be a bit like that thing from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. You know, when they shrink the kid so he can go in the TV. They shrink the little,
they
the
send
kid
him
that's
through the
obsessed with
TV.
the TV, and they shrink him so he can go in the TV.
Yes.
Yeah, like that.
I'm embarrassed. What's that kid's name? I can't
Mike
remember
TV.
from Charlie and the Chocolate. Mike TV.
I was going to
that's
say, I
it.
think
Yeah.
he's just called
Mike
Mike TV.
That's it.
He's nowhere as cool as Veruca Salt.
No, nobody's as cool as Veruca
That's
Salt.
true.
I love the chocolate bar transporter effect though.
Yeah.
In Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
I like the lickable wallpaper.
Absolutely. For nursery walls. Everlasting gobstoppers. Although they'd be a bit gross, right?
Yeah.
Because what do you do with it when you just take it out and, like, it's kind of sticky?
You put it in its special little case.
Now I'm kind of picturing over in the mess hall, Neelix actually has like an Everlasting Leola Root dispenser.
He must
Oh,
have because he
gosh.
keeps bringing Tom Leola Root stew every day.
Where does all this Leola Root come
That
from?
is true.
Everlasting Leola Root.
Now, let's talk about the cruel and unusual punishment that is the Starfleet's brig.
That is cruel and unusual to bring him Leola Root stew every day. I think the UN needs to get involved.
I know. I think they do. And he said basic nutrition. I'm like, that's
No,
not
I'd
basic
rather have bread
nutrition.
and water.
Bread and water. Bread and water.
Yeah. Where's the bread and water? Come on, poor guy. But Starfleet brigs are awful. I've always thought this for years. I mean, like, you're completely on show the entire time. There's no blankets. Where's the toilet?
Yeah, there's no toilet, there's no sink, but there's so much room. He could be doing push-ups in there, have guests. It's weird.
Yeah, at a certain point, I'm just not buying solitary confinement. He has so many people come by to visit him in
Yeah.
solitary confinement.
Yeah, I don't know. They're weird, aren't they? They're really weird.
Why are they so spacious?
But that is a good question. Did you get the sense that there's actually no shower in the brig? Because I couldn't really tell. Like, when Tuvok comes to get him after 30 days and he says, your time has been served, you know, does he smell like he's been in there 30 days?
And then why is his beard so tiny?
Yeah, he doesn't look like he has 30 days of growth on his face, so...
I am more worried about how he goes to the toilet.
Well, they have the little push-out... No, they have the little push-out toilet shelf, right?
Do they?
You push the button and the toilet shelf comes... I think so, right?
I know they do that with a sink.
Do we ever actually see that?
I think we see it in the Next Generation once.
I thought it was just a
Okay.
sink.
Okay, but we don't see it in this episode.
It's multi-purpose.
So you go in there and then you wash your hands.
Yeah, it's
Ew.
24th century industrial design. You know, everything serves a dual purpose.
Not sanitary.
They got it from Space IKEA. Yeah. Flat pack.
Another thing that I noticed. His undershirt has all those seams on it. That looks so incredibly uncomfortable.
Surely those seams would burst under the ocean from all the pressure.
Not inside the ship. That's the whole point.
When Tom gets hot under the collar, the seams burst.
But I would think, in the future there would be less seams in the undershirts. Because really, undershirts, you don't want that many seams. You don't want any seams.
If you're going to have replicated shirts in the 24th century, why do you need replicated shirts with seams, right?
Yeah.
As if they were
Why
sewn.
do you even need seams? Yeah.
Especially the amount that was in there. There was like 8 seams. You don't need that many. Even in a normal shirt, you don't have that many.
Were they trying to make him look extra buff, do you think?
Yeah, they were definitely trying to make him look like he's been doing 100
But he only did
push-ups.
6 push-ups.
Yes.
6
Although
total.
he pretended to do 100. I love how he pretends to
That was
Neelix that
funny.
he's done 100.
It's like, I don't think Neelix cares. Why are you trying to impress
Well,
him?
there's some great
No.
campy sort of over gestural acting from Tom in this, right? Because you get the scene where when Janeway tells him he's confined to 30 days in solitary confinement, and he says, "I know the way," and he throws his hand up in the air. "I know the way."
I've been there before.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. The way that he said that, "I know the way," I was like, how many times has he been in the brig before? I mean, I know everybody knows where the brig is because they know the ship, but the way he says it suggests that he's done this walk of shame in the past. Because that is his little walk of shame that he does, doesn't he? Past everyone as he's on his way down there.
Every time Tom acts up on the bridge or talks back to Captain Janeway, she's like, "Tom, go to your corner. Go to the brig."
5
He
minute
has his own
timeout.
special corner in the brig. Yeah, his own special timeout corner in the brig. That's ace.
So one of the things I thought we could talk about is Tom's letter to his father, speaking of the brig. That's how he passes the time, of course. What did you guys think of Tom's letter to his father? Clearly Tom's got daddy issues.
And it made me wonder why he's with B'Elanna, who also has daddy issues. Why did they choose to pair the two people with daddy issues together?
Because almost everybody in Voyager has daddy issues.
That's
true. Captain Janeway.
Chakotay has daddy issues.
I never thought about it.
Janeway has daddy issues.
Tuvok has daddy issues. Wait.
I don't know about Tuvok.
Tuvok is a daddy
But
issue.
at least those four. Kes has daddy issues.
That is true. The Doctor has daddy issues.
Yeah. Fact. See? It's just a whole show of daddy issues.
I mean, I really do understand Tom's need to want to justify him, maybe to his father externally as a projection of his monologue to himself, the justification he has to do for what, how he ended up there and his reasoning and whatnot. I understand needing to talk it through. I'm not sure he needs to do it in the form of a letter to his father, but...
But at that point, who else is he going to write to? He's not going to write to Harry.
I like the way he does it. I really think that Robert Duncan McNeill does a great job in this episode. When he's acting that to the camera, I mean, that must be really difficult. Because he has a lot of that to do, just the reading out, this is what happened, from a pad to the camera, him and the camera, that's it. And there are a lot of really close shots as well, which must be quite a lot of pressure. And I think he does a really good job.
Oh yeah, he does a very good job.
Well, there's him and the camera, and then there's the guy who mans the brig that he plays this chess game with every time he's sent to the brig. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So is that like his Wilson? Wilson. Wilson!
Amazing. Yes. Well, we're going to call that guy Wilson from now on, even whether that's his name or not. Yeah. So I think he does a really good job. The thing that I wonder about this episode, because first of all, it's interesting in Star Trek generally because there's only one plot. We just have an A plot. There's no A plot and B plot.
Well, the Delaney Sisters, but that's,
Well, kind of, but it's all part of the same... There's not a separate kind of counter plot or whatever. So that puts a lot of focus on the one plot. And I wonder what came first. It's a bit of a chicken or egg scenario. Did they decide they wanted to have an episode with Tom in the brig doing the letter about this thing he'd done? Or did they decide they were going to do this water planet and then they added I don't know which way round did they do it. I kind of feel like Tom doing the letter was the idea first.
I know during the original shooting it ran short and they had to add some extra, so I'm not quite sure what they added in to make it the proper length.
You can tell it ran short because they repeat a bit at the end that they had at the beginning.
See, I kind of love the idea that they originally had this brig story all nailed down. They realized they needed to add something into it, and they're sitting around the writing room, and then they go, what could we add in? Oh, I know, Waterworld. Let's put that in here.
Yeah.
At least there was no Kevin Costner. That's a plus.
But I definitely feel like the part with him in the brig with the letter to his dad, I feel like that was the concept. Mm-hmm. And then they had to work out a thing that he had to have done in order for that to
end up there.
Yeah.
No, I kind of make light of the Waterworld thing, but I love this little science fiction Waterworld concept they came up with. This floating mass of water that's all drawn together by this gravitational force in the middle of it, produced by... what a cool science fiction
I thought that was really cool. I wish they'd done something a bit more creative with it.
Yeah, and for all of the weird techie stuff you get in Voyager, this is a really cool science fiction concept. I hadn't seen anything like this before.
I would have liked to know more about the people that actually created the world, instead of these people that came upon it and were like, hey, we're just going to live here.
The water squatters?
The water squatters, yes.
Interestingly, though, because did they say, I can't remember whether they actually say that did they come from a water-based place before they came there?
I don't
or
think
were they
so.
land dwellers? Because I thought that the alien makeup for them was really cool.
Oh, yeah, it was
I really liked the look.
It was good.
They almost sort of looked like this kind of...
They looked fish-like, with their little nostrils on the side.
Humanoid seal in a wetsuit is kind of how I've described it.
But what could possibly happen? So, you're cruising along in your spaceships, and you come along this giant blob of water, and you're like, hey, that looks like a cool place to live. Let's live there.
Yeah.
Why not?
And I already look like a sea also.
They're salty sea dogs, too. They have brine in the...
Brine in the veins.
They had brine in the veins. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that little phrase, actually. It leads on, though, to... The whole scenario is a bit... Well, the scenario itself's quite straightforward and quite obvious. But their reaction I found strange. Because they tell them, oh, we've got this better way for you to extract oxygen that's not going to damage the ocean, which they were quite worried about in the beginning and asked for help with. And then they just aren't interested, and yet we don't see this whole, oh, well, because the oxygen plants we have at the moment are really profitable, or because it's a matter of honour for such a person who's in charge of it all or something. They're really resistant to it, and yet we don't find out why.
Just aquatic bureaucracy.
I'm guessing they're climate change deniers. Even with the scientific evidence right in front of you. Oh, no.
Maybe, yeah.
That doesn't exist. You're wrong. Doesn't exist.
This is something we haven't talked about very much, but this is a great environmental message. You know, there are people who deny climate change. There are people who don't want to get away from fossil fuels. There are people who don't understand the seriousness of the environmental catastrophe that we could be facing on this planet someday.
Soon.
And this episode does a great job of laying all of this out. Again, by depersonalizing, by putting it in outer space, underwater. This is very Star Trek. You take a real life situation that's a real problem and putting it in, you know, aliens with makeup and underwater and out in space and, you know, putting the mirror back at ourselves. Saying, look, this is us. Those people who don't want to change, don't want to make the effort. That's us, guys. Wake up.
We're the idiots. Yay.
We're the idiots.
Yeah, I do agree with that, and obviously that is the message, but I just felt like if there was some kind of... If they were saying, oh, well, this is all of the kind of profit that these people are making from doing it the way we're currently doing it, that would have made more sense to me. I don't quite get why maybe they just don't want outsiders telling them what to do. Maybe it's just that. But I felt like the reasons why they didn't want to talk about this new technology that would do it better and save their ocean, why they were so resistant to it really without any real reason behind it.
I mean, it could just be like a slow-moving bureaucracy. Like, yeah, we'll deal with it someday when it works its way through the committees, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or the main dude in charge of the committee is making all the money from these
Stanford
plants.
Blatch pretty much said as much, that it's going to get tied up in the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to call him Stanford Blatch the whole episode, by the way, just so you know.
You should.
Okay. That's cool.
So
That's
does that
totally
make
cool.
Tom Carey or Samantha?
He's Mr. Big.
No, he can't be Mr. Big. If anybody's Mr. Big, it's Chakotay.
He's actually kind of like Aiden. If we're going to use Sex and the City metaphors, he's kind of like Aiden. Carrie's
Okay, he
boyfriend.
can be Aiden. That's fine. But he is not
there
Mr.
you
Big.
Who is Mr. Big?
Chakotay? Hello?
Obviously.
Yes.
How did I miss that one?
Although Chakotay could also be part Aiden because Aiden did the woodworking and Chakotay's always whittling.
Well, there is that, yeah.
I wish I'd seen this show and then I could actually know what you're saying.
Kay, I think it's really amusing that you haven't seen Sex and the City. So when you see the character Rigga, you don't immediately see Stanford Blatch from Sex and the City.
Nope.
Yeah, as soon as he talks, I'm like, Stanford!
For you, it's like, 30 Days. That's the one with Tom Paris and the brig in the water. We're like, no, this is the one with that guy from Sex and the
Yep.
City. So that makes Captain Janeway as Carrie and Chakotay is Mr. Big. What other characters from Sex and the City could we match onto the Voyager characters while we're talking about Stanford Blatch? Who would B'Elanna Torres be? I feel like she'd be Miranda, but...
She probably would be Miranda. And then Kes would be, darn it, I can't remember her name, the goody two-shoes.
Charlotte.
Thank you.
Kes would be Charlotte.
Kes would be So who's Samantha?
Yeah, if you remember, Kim Cattrall, who played Samantha, was actually Valeris in Star Trek VI, so...
It'd have to be Tuvok then.
Tuvok is Samantha.
Or Vorik.
Vorik, when he's in Ponfar, he could be like Samantha, sure. Any of the Vulcans in Ponfar would be a good candidate for being like Samantha. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Blood Fever Vorik.
It could be one of the Delaney sisters. Not the one with the dimple. Sorry, we totally lost you, Kay.
Yeah, I can't really say anything because I haven't seen it. So I really liked Riga as a character, actually. I thought he was quite cool. I love the bit where they're getting ready to leave and he shows up with all his gear. That amused me quite a lot. He had this little instrument that looks like some kind of dumbbell thing that you go out under the water in.
I thought it kind of looked like one of those Like that little ball thing they had, it looked like one of those baby toys with different shapes that go inside the ball. And you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
I thought it
The
looked like a little kind of mini submarine pod type thing.
his little Fisher-Price science kit, you
Or
know.
what were those little
Cool.
robots from TNG?
The exocomps.
That's it.
Oh, exocomps,
That's it.
yeah.
I was like, that's what they look like.
Yes, they do, actually. Good spot, good spot. But yeah, I thought that was cool. And he showed up with all the gear, which I thought was quite interesting. They were like, oh, it's okay, we don't need it. We have all these instruments on the Delta Flyer kind of thing. And then Tom's like, oh, we'll put it in the hold. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
you can stow it in the hole.
so, is this just going in the hold so that later on, when we need to jettison some stuff so that we can raise in the water, we have some stuff to jettison?
Yes.
So what did you guys think of Seven of Nine's claim that it's in her nature to comply with the collective?
I thought it was really interesting.
She's the most contrarian person I know. It's not in her nature to comply with the collective at all.
But at this point, there was a collective agreement. So
Yeah.
going by her Borg nature, she's supposed to agree with the majority, being the collective.
Yeah. I found it interesting because it kind of made me want to go and watch everything else and see whether she actually follows through on that. I suspect not.
Seven, have a good time at the party. Everyone's doing it. I don't want to go to the party.
Yeah. I just, it was just a weird thing to throw out there, but
But she needed something to say.
it's an interesting one to think about. Does she actually act like that?
I mean, it's definitely a good 7 of 9 one-liner. I can understand throwing that in from a writing standpoint, but
Yeah.
I don't think of 7 of 9 as a particularly agreeable go with the collective kind of person.
No.
Yeah.
I thought it was a bit of a cop-out, really. I thought she just didn't want to take responsibility for, making the decision. She was like, well, they said that, so I'll go with them.
But I really want to go back to the ship.
Yeah.
All the other sea dogs were doing it.
So while we were talking about quotes, there was actually another quote I really liked from this episode. It's when Harry visits Tom in the brig, and as he's leaving after they've had their kind of little argument, because Tom's kind of gone, nope, don't want to deal with the fact that I've been naughty and now I've got to face up to it. Harry turns around and says, what was it you once told me? That your father used to say you never finished anything. I really liked that.
Oh, yeah, that was definitely a dig. And you knew Tom was going to finish the letter at that point. It's like, oh, yeah, he has to.
Yeah, and it's kind of a dig, but also is it Harry trying to help him? Because Harry said to him up to that point a couple of times, oh, you should finish it. Oh, you should finish the rest of the letter. And Tom's like, oh, what's the point? Mm-hmm. And I think Harry knows if he puts it that way, Tom's going to finish it. So he's actually trying to help him, I think, in that way.
Yeah, it's like, here's the chance to prove your dad wrong, right?
It's like Harry knows how to press Tom's buttons. I like that.
Now with the letter, do you think he just kept it in wherever he saved it and didn't send it later in the data stream?
It seems like the letter would get sent the first time they're able to contact the Alpha Quadrant.
But
that
he
letter
said,
goes out automatically, right?
send it when we're in proximity to Earth.
That's true, I guess.
Yeah. And I don't know what proximity means.
I'm guessing close enough to beam down.
Yeah, so whether or not it actually gets sent, I don't know. I wish we'd seen that dealt with.
Yeah.
That's the final scene of Endgame that was cut. Tom's letter gets sent to his dad.
So many scenes cut from that.
Yeah, I think I would have liked to have seen them deal with that
Yeah.
later on.
Or at least send it in the first data stream.
Yeah.
Do you guys get the sense that not following through is actually Tom's problem? Because I get the sense that he's, not motivated. I get the sense that he's, he breaks the rules. I get all that, but not completing his projects, not following through. Is that part of Tom's problem that he needs to address?
I don't know.
Yeah. Not sure. Because, he follows through on his hollow programs.
Yeah. And he always finishes those.
And he got that television set he always wanted.
And the toaster.
But then I guess he's always doing the next Hollow program, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So he's always coming up with a new one. So I don't know. I don't know whether that really reflects him.
So he's the holo novelist that never finished a holo novel?
No, that was Seska.
Yeah.
Well, Tuvok never finished his novel, if you remember.
That's true.
Where's Tuvok's dad to, rib him about it?
Yeah. We never hear about Tuvok's dad.
Tuvok's writing a letter to his father, Sorry, I never finished the holo programs, Dad.
Bad Tuvok.
I just have this vision now of him sitting in his quarters cross-legged, kind of like beating himself.
Ritual beatings.
You know, it's like ritual beating, yeah.
Yeah, trying to compose a letter to his father. He's like, "Dear Vulcan father." Pause, erase.
Dear Vulcan father, that's exactly what I'd write. Brilliant.
Dearest Vulcan dad. Pause, erase. Honored father.
There you
Pause,
go.
erase.
Oh, the only other thing I wanted to say was how cute is Tiny Tom with his boat? How adorable. Tiny Tom. Dad yelling at him from one direction. Janeway yelling at him from the other direction. Poor thing. No wonder he grew up to be a delinquent.
So you know what the scene with young Tom reminds me of? It reminds me of the original Back to the Future movie, the scene with Uncle Jailbird Joey, the little baby that's inside the crib and always likes being behind bars, and every time you take him out of the bars he cries and he ends up, a criminal in jail all the time. This is the Jailbird Joey theory of parenting, right? That if you punish your kid too much and they get used to being in trouble all the time, they're going to grow up and be delinquent. So this, Tom Paris is essentially Jailbird Joey.
So it's all Admiral Paris's fault then.
Pretty much.
Well, every time you take Tom out of the brig, he cries. Put me back in.
He doesn't know how to survive on the outside. He's become institutionalized.
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying. That if that's what you know and that's your habits, then he's in a way he keeps putting himself in situations where he's going to get in trouble. It's not that he's doing it on purpose to get back to jail, but that is his default comfort zone is to be in trouble.
Can't handle life on the outside.
Can't handle having a bathroom. Needs to be in the brig with no bathroom.
Yeah, he's like Red from Shawshank Redemption. Every time Tom gets out of the brig, he's going to do something to get right back in.
Well, the only thing I've written down on my pad that I haven't mentioned now is it says Loch Ness Monster.
Oh, that's the electric eel.
The eel?
I wrote Loch Ness Monster.
I'm not sure that they were in Loch Ness, but I could be wrong.
Monayan, maritime, sovereignty, ocean, monster. Doesn't have quite the same ring to it.
The poor ancestors of these underwater deep sea creatures that live in this giant ocean, they were sucked off their planet by this water collector, and now they live in this giant ocean in the sky.
So it's a giant aquarium.
Yeah.
Giant aquarium in the sky. Yes.
Ginormous aquarium, yeah.
Isn't that where fish go when they die? The giant aquarium in the sky?
Oh, I thought they got flushed.
Aww. I don't know which is worse.
All drains lead to the ocean.
All drains do lead to the ocean. That is true. Eventually. Well, it's been fun talking about 30 days this week. But this isn't the only thing we've been talking about here on Trek FM this past week. So here's a quick look at some of the other things you may have missed elsewhere on the network.
Previously on Trek.fm, Standard Orbit.
You know what the saddest part of this movie was for me? Not that Kirk died, not that Enterprise D got destroyed, when that little girl dropped her teddy bear in the hallway. Oh. And was like, oh, and like my mom was like, that's okay, Data's gonna go back and get it. I remember she told me that.
And they just stepped on it, right?
They linger on it as well.
Melodic Treks.
I really like the ant scene with the red ants. Yeah. I thought that was really cool and it really fit. And I really hated the gopher at the beginning.
Yes.
Because I'm like, George Lucas, get your greasy fingers off this movie, okay?
Stage 9, a podcast about the people who make Star Trek.
I took a Bible and I prayed on the Bible, please God, let me see Tomorrow Never Dies. And I still didn't get to see Tomorrow Never Dies. 19 years later, I'm an atheist. I think it all comes back to that moment.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out these shows and find out what we're talking about in your favourite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button. That helps us out greatly and makes it easier for other listeners to find the show as they search iTunes. If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, and of course you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website and grab the RSS link as well.
Are you saying, Kay, that our listeners can get our Trek FM podcast by sonar?
They can.
Can they get them in whale?
They are also available in WoW.
Another way you can help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week is to become a patron of the network on Patreon. If you visit patreon.com/trekfm, that's patreon.com/trekfm, you'll find our current goals and different milestone contribution levels, along with all the great perks we have for you. These perks include early access to content, exclusive content, producer credits, seats on our content development team, and more. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/trekfm.
Well, before we go, there are several people we'd like to thank. We'd like to thank C. Bryan Jones, the founder and publisher of Trek.fm, our executive producers, Charlene Schmidt, Matthew Resching, and Kenneth Tripp, Aaron Harvey, our art director, and Richard Marquez, our production manager. We'd also like to give a special thank you and a shout out to our associate producers here on To the Journey. We'd like to thank Jamie Duce, Bruce Lish, Dante Hopkins, Brian Beliso, and Joo Kim. We really want to thank you for your support of To the Journey and for the Trek FM network.
And don't forget to check out Enterprise in Space, a project of the non-profit National Space Society. Visit enterpriseinspace.org to find out more and get your seat on the mission. And check out audible.com, offering more than 150,000 titles for your desktop or mobile device. To get a free audiobook of your choice, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm.
If you'd like to contact us about anything you heard on our podcast today, you can find a contact form at trek.fm/contact, or you can also leave us a voicemail. Look in the sidebar on the To the Journey page on the Trek FM website, or go to speakpipe.com/trekfm. You can also find Trek FM on Twitter, @TrekFM. You can also find us on facebook.com/trekfm. While you're on Facebook, look up the Babel Conference, Trek FM's listeners-only discussion group. That's BABEL. Or you can go to our website, trek.fm, and click Discussion on the menu bar. We also invite you to leave a rating and review for To the Journey on iTunes. We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for the show. Kay, if anybody wants to speak whale to you, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me in the Babel Conference. I'm often in there, chatting to other seagoing creatures. And if you want to look me up on Twitter, my handle is Choco Weeble. Zachary, when you're not bobbing along on the bottom of the briny sea, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me elsewhere on the Trek FM network, hosting Metatrek's Trek FM show on Star Trek and philosophy. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can talk about anything related to Star Trek with me in the Babel Conference, Trek FM's listeners-only discussion group. And if you want to get in touch with me on Twitter, my handle is just my name, @Zachary Fruhling. And how about you, Suzanne? Why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you on the interwebs and around the Trek FM network?
Well, you can find me hiding out in the Babel Conference. You can also find me on Twitter @KJaneway8. That's the letter K, Janeway, and the number 8.
Well, everyone, thanks for coming along with us for our journey under the sea. Join us next week when we'll be recording To the Journey from Voyager's brig. But until then, this has been To the Journey.